Hello and welcome to Who is Blank's Mix, where we interview your favorite artists and find out more about their music and inspirations. For our very first episode, we are joined by the amazing Livia, and welcome to the first episode.
Hey, thank you for having me. And everyone can see my washing in the corner, which is great.
Before we get into all the nitty-grittiness of making the playlist and find out more about your favorite songs and your inspirations, we'll do a quick fire round with your name, age, and your star sign for now.
So I'm Livia, or like Liv in my personal life. I'm 21, it's just been my birthday, and I'm a Cancer. So I cry all the time.
I suppose that's good for making music, though, the cancer aspect of it.
Yes, definitely. I feel everything incredibly deeply. Yeah.
So, at the moment, what would you say is your favorite song, artist slash album?
Blowing Smoke from The Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams that came out like a few weeks ago. So good.
What is it about that album and like those songs in particular that you're just like, yes, I love?
Um, well, before the album came out, Gracie had been like, "This is a happy album. Who let her say that? It's not. It's like miserable." But that's great. I love miserable music, and I always have. But I found with Gracie that like I'm a playlist girly, and there aren't many like albums or artists that I'll just like shuffle their music as a whole. And Gracie is one of the artists that, although like I do have a couple of my favorites and stuff, I usually listen to her music as like a collective. So I'll either listen to both of her albums like front to back, or I'll shuffle them, or I'll just shuffle her, which is quite rare for me. And I don't know what it is about her music that makes me do that, but it's quite nice actually. Um, and I think both of her albums have really grown on me. Like first listen, I was like, not sure. And then as I've gone back for more, like they've gotten better and better, which is definitely how this one has gone as well.
I do find with Gracie, she's very much an artist. You listen to the song, you're like, I'm not too sure about that. And then like you find yourself just thinking about it and you're just like, I need to listen to that again.
Yeah. I did I was actually TikTok live as the album like dropped, and there was somebody in the comments who I know from Twitter, and she was like, I think you'll like XYZ song. She was like, can you live react? They wanted me to live react, which was mean. I can't believe they did that to me, because now there's video footage of me just like losing it at um Blowing Smoke, which I think is, I've got like three favorites from the album, which are Blowing Smoke, Free Now, and um I can't remember what it's called. It's the first one off the album.
Oh, I can't
Can't remember
remember.
what it's called. Felt Good About You, I think it's called.
I think so.
Um, and funnily enough, those are the three that I listened to on this live. And the bridge of Free Now, the I Was Brave When I Kissed You in London, that is when the live should have ended. I should have been like, right, I need to go and unpack this at home elsewhere.
That's too real to get into on live right now.
Yeah.
So we've got the little taste of what is your music so far. So we'll get into making the overall playlist. So what would you say is your favorite song of all time?
This is really hard because there's like, as I said, being a Cancer, I feel everything so deeply. So it's like I love a lot of things so much. I don't like anything in moderation. But when you ask me this, like I'm trying not to think about these questions too much. Like the first thing that popped into my head was "Oh" by Coldplay.
Is there a reason why that one out of all the possibilities kind of stood out?
It means a lot to me personally, like the links I have with it. But it's just like separate to that and what it means to me personally, like it's just so beautiful. Like it's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. And it's sort of, it gives me a feeling that there's maybe only like five songs as of right now that I've heard in my life that give me that same feeling. And I think when you said what's your favorite song of all time, it was those five that popped up in my head. Um, yeah, I love, I don't even know if it's like a specific genre, but sort of like, and I struggle to find more of it now, but it was sort of like between 2017 and 2019, there was a really specific genre of like sad music, but that was so beautiful. And it's still around now, but not in the same way. And I don't know what it is that was there at the time that isn't there now.
It's like I get what you mean because like there is I do find that era of music. I find like pre-COVID era music, those 3 years before, there was something like so like I don't know,
Yeah.
there's something there to it, and then it's like COVID happened, you just
Whatever
can't.
happened, like, yeah. There was just something in the air, like artists like Nick Wilson is one of my favorite artists of all time. He is one of the artists I think that can still do whatever the thing was, but also again, I don't know if that's because he's one of my personal favorites and his music just does whatever this thing is for me. Um, but yeah, that sort of music. But although I say that sort of music, the couple of songs that are in that like genre for me are actually so different to each other. Like there's some like sad bedroom pop stuff in there, like acoustic stuff like Nick Wilson, and then obviously Coldplay doesn't really they're a genre of their own. Yeah.
So you've just talked about Nick Wilson, and you said that when I asked you about a certain song you heard live, you said about a Nick Wilson song. So what one was that?
Yeah, it's Sunburn by Nick Wilson. So I've known Nick for a long time and I've I've been annoying him online for a long time. Because before I did music, I was just a fangirly on the internet as well, which like for my Twitter and stuff is it's really weird, but it's really nice now that there's people like in a group chat for me. It's like this is really bizarre. This I was you 5 years ago. Like it's really weird. But yes, I've followed Nick for a really long time. And I've only seen him live twice. Once was like 2 years ago. Because he's um because obviously like 5 years ago on the internet I was very young and I lived up north, so I didn't really get out to gigs much outside of like Manchester and Leeds. Um and I think he did most of his gigs in London and stuff. So when I moved, it was like, right, I can finally see Nick. Great. Saw him. It was beautiful, amazing, everything I could have hoped for. And then I saw him again a couple of weeks ago actually at oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called. Show the Credits. And it's a really beautiful like evening. I think they do it once a month in a like beautiful church in Paddington. And it's they get different songwriters in. So as opposed to it being a gig, it's more of the like music community and like they have different artists every time and like people talk about like why they write, who they write with. Like it's just a really beautiful night. And the night I went, Nick happened to be performing. And I'd messaged him and he knows some of the songs that are like my all-time favorites. And I'd been like, are you gonna play this one? And he was like, well, I wasn't, but I could. And I was like, oh haha lol. Like, and then during his set, he was like, I've never ever played this one live, but someone, and I saw him like at me, like asked me to play it. And that like was just really special. And I came home and it was really like it was really weird and full circle because it was like that was really special and I was having a tough time at that time and it was like that's made me feel so nice and I'm going to think about that forever. And it was just sort of like this is what I want to do with my music for other people. Like that moment was really like I hope I can make someone feel like that
That's
sort of thing.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like when you start like playing like more shows and stuff, do you there's just that magical feeling that you want people to just walk away with after you go to a concert. You're just left like this little warm feeling in like your chest.
Yeah, definitely. And it all sort of links in with the weird like I was like a lot of my audience is from Twitter now and it's the weird full circle thing of I was them. So but it's also really special because it's with a lot of what I do, I think back to me being online and like everything I do now, all of my friends, like is basically a product of being online and like the online communities I was a part of and like the things they led to. So it's like as a fan back then, what would I have wanted from the artists that I followed? So I try and do bits of that, which is really nice. But it's also nice because I can relate to them
Hmm.
and it feels less because it's still very small, it feels a lot less parasocial.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Like I consider a lot of these people like my friends, and do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
really nice. And I
Mhm.
had the first experience of like people singing back my lyrics recently. I played a gig called Burnt Toast. Um, and a couple of the people from Twitter came and like they were singing my songs, and I was like, that's so bizarre. It was really, really nice.
I bet that's such a nice feeling, like as like a new and like smaller artist when like you do that first gig where there are people there like singing along and you're just kind of like, oh my God, they know my songs.
Yeah, it was so lovely because I've done like quite a lot of gigs in London, but a lot of the time you're just like in the back of a pub, like there's people like they just want to watch whatever sports on. They're not like I've sung for so many empty rooms, which is fine. Like it's what gets you going, and it's just like one friend has come and it's just they're like, yay! But also like my friends don't know every word to like all of my songs because although they're very supportive, obviously it's not for them.
No,
So yeah, it was like it was so nice. Yeah, really, it was so bizarre, but like really, really lovely.
is there like, do you have like a venue in mind, no matter how small or big, that you're like, if I've played this venue, I'm good to go. Like I've done
Cool.
something.
I would love to play any of the Manchester Academy venues. So how Manchester Academy works, so there's Club Academy, Academy 1, 2, 3, and I think there's another one. So they're all on one really long road in Manchester that's all part of the uni. So Club Academy is underneath, I think Club Academy is the smallest one, and it's underneath their student union. I think there's one above their student union, and then the biggest one, I can't remember if it's 1 or 3, the biggest one, but then the biggest one is like in a separate outbuilding, like on the road. And I spent basically like 3 times a week growing up, like straight on a train to Manchester from school, straight to Oxford Road, like running to these venues to sit with my friends. And like I've seen so many of my favorite artists there, like big and small. Um, I'm not sure what the capacities are. I saw Lewis Capaldi play Club Academy in 28, the very start of 2018 when there were like 100 people in the room. Um, and then I saw Dodie in the biggest venue like the same year. So like so many of my favorite artists. So any of those venues would just be really nice to play in the like again the full circle way.
Of just having like being back at the venues that you went to as a fan and being like, oh,
Yeah.
they're all coming for me. They're all doing what I used to do, but for me.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite song from a favorite album at all?
So I love Ariana Grande and I I found a really good way to explain it recently. Ariana to me is what Taylor Swift is to other people,
Yeah, I
if
go.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, like she's the like one artist like I if someone came to my door and was like we need all of your internal organs, I'd be like yeah, if it's for her she can have them,
Yeah.
like that's fine. She released her 7th album in March, Eternal Sunshine, and I love everything she does. Like I've joked before, she could release dog food and I'd buy it. I don't have a dog. Um, but I think it's such a gorgeous album. And I think it says so much about her life while also like being a concept album. Like I just think it's really clever and really good. That's such a horrible choice of words. I think it's good. But yeah, my favorite from that album is I Wish I Hated You. It's just it's so vulnerable and it's like the production is beautiful. And I think she said in an interview that she like won't play it because it's like too hard for her, which is sad. But yeah, that's my favorite.
That album is like it's such a beautiful album. Like I remember the first time I listened to it and I was like, okay, I'm not really understanding this right now, but I could tell that it was one that was gonna grow on me. And then like
Yeah.
I went to work and I could just hear it all in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to listen to that again on the way back home.
Yeah, it does. It gets stuck in your head.
It's just so beautiful. And I think Ariana's like she has such a way of like putting her emotions into a song that you can just like feel them. Like you feel it all. And
Yeah. Especially in that one, like there's a specific line where like her voice cracks. Like you can hear in the recording that she was clearly like about to cry, and it's like but then the choices you make as a musician when you're making music, like she okayed that to stay. She chose not to retake, like to redo that line. I think there's just something so powerful in that like it's especially recording vocals, I'm the worst. I am like such a perfectionist. I'll do them 300 times and it still won't be okay. And actually, I don't really talk about this side of things actually because I guess it's not that you wouldn't want to share, but basically, Almost Lovers, the night before we so we submitted it for release basically, and I was listening to it and like crying in my room because I was like, I don't like this bit, and you can hear in this vocal line that this happens, and like I was being so like nitpicky about it, but it was already submitted, and we could have cancelled it, but I was just so in my head about it. And now, actually, of all my songs, that is my favorite, and I love it. And listening now, I don't hear whatever I could hear that night. Like I think I was just in my head, but so like seeing an artist that I love so much and is also like one of the biggest pop stars in the world leave a vocal take that isn't perfect, like for a reason, is like really inspiring.
I do think sometimes when you're listening to songs, you can hear that emotion come through. It does make it like it makes it more real because sometimes when you're listening to a song, you just like, oh, that's just like a fun little song. But it's like when you can hear the emotion, that's when it's like, oh my God, someone actually went through all that and like they're retelling it. And I think that's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, definitely. But I also think it's like it's really powerful when because obviously people write songs for other people and people are singing stories that aren't their own sometimes, but they like everything means something to someone, and they're like the person singing it, putting emotion into it, might not even be feeling the same thing about the lyrics that the person that wrote it is. But I think that's what's so powerful about music, that you can take something that might be really specific to somebody else and make it whatever it needs to mean for you, which is why like I try not to deep dive into what some of my songs are about too much. Like I give like a quick general sometimes, like when I play them on TikTok Live, for example, I'm like, this song's these sort of themes, but I try not to deep dive into specific lyrics because I think what you need to hear at times finds you and you make of it what you need to at the time.
So you very much want your music to just kind of be out there for people, and if they need it, they can make up their own assumptions of it. But like you've always got like that little story to you, but everyone, like you said, everyone has their own different interpretations of like the same song.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think I've included this song in the questions, but I've been listening to um it's called Your Mother's Name and it's by Susanna, I think it's Joffe. I'm probably saying that so wrong, but there's a lyric in that song and the lyrics are really specific, I'd assume. I'm just gonna find the lyric that I so I don't misquote it. There's a lyric and it says, even though you're an atheist, now I am too, because there's no way a God would let me lose you.
Wow.
And that's clearly like it's so specific, and the rest of the song is, but it's one of my favorites, and I've been listening to it for a really long time. And I've come back to it the last few days, and that line is just like so good. And like that could mean anything. And I love stuff like that, that you can just take whatever you need from it.
I suppose we're talking about how people can interpret songs in whatever way. And I asked you, do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Yeah. So I haven't actually done much karaoke because it's this sounds really silly, but it's one of those things I tended to avoid
Mhm.
because it always made me feel because like you can't if you can sing, you can't really switch it off.
No, no, I get what you mean.
I'd the thought of like going to karaoke and accidentally sounding good, like the thought just makes me cringe. It gives like Rachel Berry, like, oh, I've come to karaoke, but actually I can sing. Do you know what I mean? So like it's not I've never really had the opportunities to do karaoke anyway, but like if it had ever come up, I had just avoided it. Um, but I would say if I was going to do karaoke now, I'd probably embrace it a little bit more. I think that sort of insecurity about because I think that was more about what would other people think if I
Yeah.
did karaoke and accidentally sounded good, or if like I don't know. Do you know what I mean? If I picked like a musical theatre song or like what would other people think? Whereas I think if I was to do it now, I'd just be like, well, everybody loves this song and I love doing it, and like that's all that matters, sort of thing. So on that, I would do Pink Pony Club by Chappelle Roan.
That seems like such a fun song to sing. Like I can't sing. I cannot sing. But sometimes when Chapel comes on, I'm like I find that I can sing the verses and then she gets to the chorus and I'm like, how is she getting up there? Like it's just so like how is how is she doing that?
Yeah, I did a really fun so I've just finished uni. I went to Guildhall, which is a music and drama school, and I didn't do music. I have like a sort of non-music like job, I guess. But we did there's a lot of like cross collaboration for like if you don't do music but you want to, like you can do little bits and pieces. Anyway, this thing was put on and it was a cabaret night. And anybody could perform, you could do anything. Like people did comedy, like people danced and stuff. And I was like, can I just sing two songs? And um the teacher that put it on was like, sure, like invite people, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to. Like, I invited some of my friends, but I didn't want to put it out because I really wanted to just do something fun and do something for me where like it didn't really matter and I wasn't singing my song. So I wasn't particularly Livia as in I was gonna say like the brand. That sounds awful, but you know what I mean? Like
I know.
as an artist, I was just like Liv that just likes to sing like I used to be growing up. And so I was like, I was thinking for ages, what should I do? And I didn't want to do anything too depressing. So it was like a fun, like queer cabaret night. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna I did Silk Chiffon by Muna, which I've been doing live for a while. And then I did Pink Pony Club. And I intentionally like I did like Chappelle makeup. I wore like a really fun outfit. Like so I sort of did have a persona for the night, but something that I'd never done before. And the ideal with it was I just wanted to have fun and like practice my stage presence and stuff. And it was so fun. And like I'm so glad that I did that and I kept it sort of in the environment that it was and I just didn't have to worry about it. And it was really nice.
Just allowed you to kind of play around with like your stage presence and kind of get a bit used to doing something that you don't normally like present yourself with, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm getting more used to like performing without a guitar.
Mhm.
I'm trying to not do that as much. And so this was just literally like a backing and like it was just a tiny little stage. Like I could walk around the audience. It was just like it was just really fun. And I sort of miss that because I guess every time I perform now it's me and it's my stories and there's nothing to hide behind. Um and it's all very vulnerable, which is fine. Like I don't mind being vulnerable in that thing. It was just nice to step out of that, but do the same thing, but in a different context,
Not have
which I guess is sort of what karaoke is.
Yeah. So you said that growing up, you love singing and you're always just singing about. Was there one song that like stood out and you're like, I actually want to be a singer, like I want to do this?
Yeah, so I grew up doing musical theatre. So I was a dancer from like basically as soon as I could walk, I had ballet shoes on. Um, and then I did musical theatre. And then it got to a point where like I could always sing because I had to sing like with dancing. Um, but I didn't think I could sing. Do you know, it was never like it was just something that went with dancing. It wasn't something I thought about. And then eventually it was like, oh, I enjoy singing and it's something I could do on its own. And then eventually it became a separate entity to my dancing. And I started having like singing lessons and stuff and doing more singing based musical theatre. And Wicked is my favorite musical of all time. Like actually crazy fan. I've seen it like over 50 times. It's ridiculous. And so growing up and singing those songs, but particularly I'm Not That Girl from Wicked was like I'd sing it. So my best friend growing up, we did GCSE music together. She would be on piano for me and we'd go to like church stuff or like school like concerts and stuff. We'd sing and that was like our go-to. And it comes back to the thing of interpreting lyrics how you want to. Like that song for me, I also danced to that song as well for a competition solo that I did. So the song had always meant a lot to me. But the older I got, the more I understood the lyrics, but in a different way. Obviously, the song was written specifically for like a scene of a musical. It is very specific, but it to me it means something completely different, and it relates to something like in my personal life and that song has always been there for me, like when that thing was hard, which is just really nice. And like singing that at concerts and stuff, and having the first sort of responses to me just as a singer and people coming up and being like, I remember, I don't even know who said it, but one day I was like 12 and someone was like, well, we've seen it on stage and we think you sang it better. And that was definitely not true, having seen Wicked 50 times. But like that sort of response was like, oh, like maybe I could sing just on its own.
Especially if you're getting that praise from a Wicked song, they are sing.
Yeah.
It's such an impressive musical. I think I've seen it maybe twice, and it's just
Yeah.
every time I'm like, oh my God.
It's incredible. And them casting Ariana for the film, they've done that for me specifically. Like that is for me. Like I'm not a film premiere girly. I don't really care about films. I will be queuing at Leicester Square. The carpet will be green. Let's be real, that it's going to be a green carpet. I will be there days in advance. I'm ready. I'm there.
You're there, you're sat already. Oh, she's gonna be amazing in it. It's when they announced them, like, how am I supposed not to cry seeing her as Glinda? Like,
Every time the trailer's dropped, I've just like run into a corner and I'm just like crying in a corner.
I have a lot of faith in it, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, because most movie musicals they don't really hit the mark.
No, no, not good. Not good.
I have
Although I've got a controversial take that I actually liked the Cats film.
I went to go see it in cinema, and I didn't hate it as much as
Yeah, I think if you can get past the weird like CGI
yeah.
cat thing, but also Cats is just freaky weird anyway. So I think going in
Uh,
and having the expectation of this is freaky weird, it lets you enjoy it.
I think it is such like it's a weird musical. Like it's a bunch of singing cats. It's not a normal musical, is it? So I think
No.
people went into it not fully realizing how weird and creepy cats is. Like that's the whole premise of it. It's a bunch of cats singing to essentially go to cat heaven. Like
Yeah.
it's not
It
supposed to
was
be.
one of the first musicals I ever saw, like in person, and it was on tour in Manchester. I was about 9, and we were in the stalls, and they'd like the people I was with, my family and like a couple of the dance mums,
Mm.
had been told to seat the children on the aisle seat if they could. I was the only child. I was sat on the aisle seat. Wasn't told why. They didn't know why. I can't remember which song it was. A cat this close to my face, just like singing at me, but really still thinking back to it now, like they are insanely talented to be able to do that. But I was terrified. I was 9. It was really like uncanny valley. I was like, ah.
So going off from musical theatre, is there a
Yeah.
song, just normal song, theatre song that you wish that you wrote and was yours?
Yeah, so this was a contender for favorite song of all time, and this is another one that fits in this weird nameless genre of beautiful songs of 2017 to 2019. Might actually be earlier, and it's Olivia by Canyon City, which my namesake song, so I've always loved it. But it's just so beautiful, and the lyrics are like they're not doing anything like particularly. They're not like I do love a clever lyric sometimes, but I also really love simple lyrics. Like you're saying what you want to say, and that's enough. And I think this song does that really well. And it's yeah. So the lyrics, it actually doesn't say the name Olivia until quite late on. Because sort of the hook is I won't blame you for the winter or write your name into a song. And then right at the end, he says Olivia. I just like it's almost like a story and like the production, it's just twinkly and beautiful in a similar way to Oh by Coldplay that's like twinkly and beautiful. Yeah.
Like when you're writing and you're thinking of a new idea for a song, like
Yeah.
what do you think makes a good song? Is it the lyrics or the production or both of them working together?
I think my relationship to this changes and is like currently changing because my experience with writing so far is just years of me on my own in my room with my guitar, and everything has always been very lyric based for me. Like songwriting is my therapy, and everything I write is very personal. And I really struggle to just sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song now. My songs come like on the tube in an art gallery. It's sort of like it's like a weird little superpower that it's like now, like it's come to me and I have to do it now. I can't just like make it happen. But that's also changing. So I'm starting to write with other people, which is really nice, and hearing other people's stories and making like fictional stories out of real people is nice. Um, and I'm slowly now working towards an EP, but like not basically a couple of songs have come out, and it's like logically now the next step is an EP. But I want to change how I work. have a break, just see what happens. So it's sort of a like that is the next step, but it's not happening, if you know what I mean. It
Yeah.
will
It's
happen whenever that happens.
yeah.
Yeah, like if it takes 2 years, that's absolutely fine. Um, but I so the first few songs, like I wrote and then took to my producer Barney, who is also my boyfriend. So it's that working relationship, working that out as well. And it, for quite a lot of them, it just never, I was never happy with them and it just never like quite fit. And it was because I was taking songs that I'd been playing for 2 years in my room that already sounded a certain way in my head and trying to make somebody that didn't know the context or hadn't heard it for 2 years and make them do their job around it. And we've found ways to work around that. But now I'm, as I say, as we're working towards whatever this EP looks like, we're just making music again for fun and with no expectations. And like I'm writing a little bit and then we're also doing some bits together, like with production and lyrics at the same time. So I don't know, but I think it also depends. This is going back to your question. On the outcome that you're wanting.
Mhm.
And at this show the credits thing that I went to where songwriters talk about their songs, Ola Gartland was also playing and she was telling us about her new album and that she similarly had been looking at the working relationship between like lyrics and melody and production and that her and her friends had basically just hired a big studio over a week and made loads of instrumentals and then she took all the stems away and wrote to the instrumentals so that it all fit and it all gelled and it worked really well. And that was really inspiring. So, I mean, I'm not on the same budget as Ola Gartland, nor do I have the same amount of people around me. But that sort of idea we've taken away, and I'm like, okay, let's try that. Like, maybe that works. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll get back to you with an answer to that one when new stuff happens.
So for the last question to finish this all off,
Yeah.
um, what out of the four songs you have, what
Mhm.
is your current favorite?
Almost Lovers, which I did mention earlier, is interesting because that's the one I had the most doubts about. But I think the doubts for that one came because I actually wrote Almost Lovers off the back of, have you ever seen those TikToks that come up and it's just like somebody sat at a piano or somebody on a guitar and they're like, somebody write a song to this. And I just wrote like a couple of lyrics to some guy playing piano and that turned into Almost Lovers. So it was one of those, like we've talked a lot about meanings of songs. It actually didn't mean anything. It was just words.
Yeah.
And I Almost Lovers is about so many things, but also nothing at the same time, which is one of the first songs I've like done with that. And I actually really like it because the meaning changes for me, even though I wrote it.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting.
And I think like the production of that is my favorite. I think I don't really listen to my own music once it's out, but that's one that I actually do occasionally listen to. And it's one of the first that we collaborated outside of just me and my producer, my friend Aaron, who actually has done little bits on all of the songs, but he did vocals on this one. And we were basically finished with the song, and we just had this bridge gap of which originally was just going to be some of my vocals layered. And I wrote the lyrics that are in there now, and I was like, this is Aaron. I could hear his voice as I wrote the lyrics. And it was just sort of like the finishing factor that like pulled it all together. And yeah, it's my favorite. I'm really, really happy with that one.
So that concludes our playlist. Thank you. It's been so
Thank
interesting
you.
to learn about your favorite songs, how they've shaped your music, and how you're grown as an artist. And it's amazing with like every release to see like the little bit more that you grow. And we can't wait
Yeah,
to
thanks so
see
much.
that EP when it eventually
Yeah,
does come out.
eventually.
We will be supporting it.
Thanks.